This is the aftermath of California's deadliest and most destructive wildfire. 85 people died here in a fire that PG&E, the country's largest utility, is suspected of starting. Now, PG&E's filed for bankruptcy, which pauses any lawsuits brought by survivors. And that means those who've lost everything might get nothing at all. This is a story about a deadly catastrophe.
Please, dear God, don't let me die.
And what happens when the government puts the interests of a corporation over people.
This is what used to be my home. My husband and I moved in here over a year ago.
Though months have passed since the Camp Fire destroyed paradise, survivors like Gina Darby are still searching for anything they're able to recover.
I'm very hopeful that they find my rings. I have an antique ring that was gifted to me when I graduated high school, and a ring that my mother made from the diamonds from her wedding ring to my dad.
Pacific Gas and Electric, or PG&E, has admitted that its equipment was probably the cause of the Camp Fire. An employee reportedly spotted flames at a utility tower in the area, the same location that CAL FIRE, which is investigating the blaze, has identified as the start of it all. That tower is part of a century-old high-voltage transmission line that PG&E knew was a safety hazard and intended to overhaul for 5 years, but didn't. And that's the fundamental problem. PG&E is a privately owned corporation that answers to its shareholders and Wall Street lenders, not members of the public. Like 17-year-old Katya, whose home was completely destroyed in the Camp Fire.
That was my Grammy's house. That was never supposed to change. That was always supposed to be the same. You know, it's like it was the one thing that stayed the same throughout my entire childhood, and now it's gone.
On the morning of the fire, Katya was house-sitting for a friend when she woke up to intense smoke. The next thing she knew, firefighters were throwing her in the back of a truck.
Yeah, it was pitch black. You could not see through any of the smoke. There was fire everywhere. And we pulled up onto this bridge and the firemen said, "Get out."
Katya jumped into this river with 14 others and took shelter for several hours as flames surrounded her.
I couldn't do anything except for scream. It was just looking around. It was just, I thought I was gonna die. All of this was on fire. Even the leaves on the water were burning. Everything was just so intensely hot. And at one point, I just kind of leaned back in the water and I just floated out over there. And I just kind of said, okay, if this is how it happens and this is how you want to take me, I'm ready.
So who do you blame?
I know that someone is at fault, and I would like to say that it's most likely PG&E's negligence that caused this, but I don't like to be like, oh, let's get angry at the PG&E guys because they started this. It's like, I'm sorry, but they work for a bigger corporation.
You're talking about how it's unfair to attack the PG&E workers who are up there trying to fix things, but what about the giant corporation that's worth billions?
Take responsibility, take ownership, and help those people that you have hurt. That's the least that you can do in all of this. And all the mistakes you've made, you can at least make some right. And they've made it very clear that they won't.
What's your favorite?
In the next town over, California Governor Gavin Newsom met with children displaced by the Camp Fire. He was elected just days before the fire, and during his campaign, he accepted over $200,000 from PG&E. There's a growing demand among ratepayers that I've spoken to that PG&E be truly publicly owned. Is that something you'll support as governor?
Well, truly publicly owned. Right now, we're just trying to figure out how to deal with the immediacy, which is the need to make sure we have safe, affordable, and reliable service, make sure we get through this bankruptcy in a way that protects ratepayers, protects the victims, make sure the victims are made whole.
How will you hold them accountable if they're found responsible for the Camp Fire?
Well, they're going to be held accountable because the letter of the law. We're going to hold them to account. We're going to hold them to account to make sure that the victims are made whole. We're going to hold them account to make sure they're doing everything to mitigate against any future disasters.
But PG&E was already on criminal probation. In 2010, a PG&E gas line exploded and killed 8 people. The company was convicted on 6 criminal charges and fined $1.6 billion by the state for failing to maintain its pipeline system. From 2014 to 2017, PG&E power lines and equipment were responsible for sparking 1,500 wildfires across California. Then, in 2018, the California State Legislature passed a bill allowing PG&E to pass the costs of the 2017 fires to its customers. 3 months later, the Camp Fire happened.
Several things went wrong before the Camp Fire broke out. A big issue is that power lines in wooded areas like Paradise tend to get caught on trees. And PG&E, which services 70,000 square miles across California, insists it doesn't have the manpower required to trim all the trees.
But what they could have done is shut off power to customers as a safety precaution. In fact, they even said they would. 2 days before the Camp Fire, PG&E warned customers that they might shut off power. But they didn't, even though it appears that all of the factors for a shutoff were at play. In an email, PG&E told me the conditions that day did not meet their criteria, but declined to elaborate.
Put the water on the building! We're not going to extinguish the main!
We're in the middle of reporting on this PG&E story, and we heard about another gas explosion that just occurred in San Francisco, so we're on the way to check out the scene.
Initial reports indicate that this was a third-party dig-in related to a construction project and not in any way associated with PG&E.
But until PG&E turns off the gas, the fire can't be put out, and they have a reputation for being slow.
Paul, during the last explosion in 2017, it took PG&E 3 hours to turn off the gas. Do you think that's acceptable?
As I mentioned, our number one priority is the safety of the public, the customers we serve in our communities. So we're going to work as hard as possible, safely, quickly as possible to get this situation resolved.
Do you agree it should be turned off ASAP?
I definitely agree that we will work as quickly as possible, do everything we can to ensure the safety of our customers and of San Francisco residents.
It's been over 2 hours since the gas explosion, and we just heard a press conference during which the PG&E spokesman really had no information to offer other than the fact that this was not caused by PG&E, but he couldn't tell us when the gas line would be cut, and until that happens, this is still a very active situation.
In the end, no one was hurt, but 5 buildings were destroyed. PG&E claims all of its lines were properly marked before a crew working for Verizon started digging underground. But in 2018, an investigation by the California Public Utilities Commission, the state agency responsible for regulating PG&E, found the company falsified internal records on gas pipeline safety over a 5-year period.
We the people of California find PG&E guilty on the charge of murder, arson, perjury, manslaughter.
At a CPUC meeting held days after PG&E declared bankruptcy, ratepayers blasted the agency for approving PG&E's request to borrow $6.1 billion from the state. The CPUC has come under fire for what critics say is the agency's refusal to make PG&E put safety over profits, and for its cozy relationship with the multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Let me just say, you were talking about how can you correct the market. You can correct it by democratizing it.
And I'm here in support to date for a state buyout of PG&E over bailout.
If the plan is structured in such a way as to prioritize paying off the big investors and the big companies first and not the survivors, then this is I think a terrible insult to the memories of the dead and to the survivors.
Protesters like Seth Sanders believe that because PG&E is providing a public service, the company should in fact be public.
There is no reason that the state can't just buy PG&E over the next year and make sure that it truly serves Californians.
Why do you think they wouldn't?
So if you look at who is on the CPUC board and you look at who's worked for energy companies, there's a lot of overlap. You can't just pay your friends. You can't just pay your already super rich investors. You have to take care of the people first.
Who do you blame for this tragedy?
I blame the big corporations, the big oil, the utilities, along with the fossil fuel industry, have been lying to us and covering it up for the last 30 years. PG&E does not have the right to kill people for profit.
After repeated requests, the CPUC, PG&E, and Governor Newsom's office all declined my requests for an interview, but I still had questions.
I'm at PG&E's headquarters, and I've asked them several times for an interview before this. They won't give it to me, but I still want to know, why didn't they turn off the power on the day of the fire? And why did this multi-billion-dollar corporation keep delaying necessary repairs on a transmission line near Paradise for years? Hi, how are you? I'm here to see Blair Jones.
I'm sorry?
Blair Jones, please.
Blair Jones?
Blair Jones, your spokesman. We've been in touch over email.
The PG&E boy?
PG&E spokesman, Blair Jones.
Sir, stop the camera. You don't need to stop.
Sorry?
You can come in and ask the lady right there.
Okay, these are my colleagues, so they're going to come in with
They
me.
have to stay for a while because they
Why?
have the camera. We're not allowed with the camera.
PG&E would not let me speak with anyone. Their security gave me a business card and showed me the door.
Okay, thank you.
The campfire had catastrophic effects on the environment. For weeks, toxic air choked parts of Northern California, and at points, we were dealing with the worst air quality in the world. On the same day of the campfire, the Woolsey fire scorched Southern California.
Oh my God, please, dear God, don't let me die. Please, dear God, don't let me die. Please, dear God, let me get out of this. Please, please.
In the face of growing climate change, which PG&E points to as a culprit in the wildfires, I wanted to know what can be done to prevent such catastrophes. Mark Jacobson is an expert in renewable energy and is consulting on the Green New Deal.
How much is climate change a factor when you look at the magnitude of the fires California's been having lately?
Climate change is definitely a factor in intensifying fires and even allowing some of them to occur or to spread. We have to address global warming, certainly on a large scale, and the way to do that is to transition to clean and renewable energy for all purposes.
So if you were tasked with helping to rebuild Paradise and set up the energy there, what would you be doing?
I would make it so it's a completely electric, efficient community running primarily on solar and wind. In California, there's a law that by 2020, all new homes have to be zero net energy. They have to basically produce as much energy that they consume in the annual average.
It could take up to a decade to rebuild Paradise. PG&E has stressed it'll do more safety shutoffs as part of a new wildfire prevention plan. Its CEO has stepped down with a payout of $2.5 million. The company is also trying to give out $235 million in bonuses this year, all while the campfire survivors are waiting to see what they'll receive. And as wildfires become the norm in California, the state has yet to hold the corporation accountable to the public it serves.
There is somebody up there in the chain of command making these decisions and being totally fine with it. But at least take ownership for the fact that you provided this service and it ended up hurting thousands.
Hey guys, it's Dena here at PG&E's headquarters. Thanks for watching this episode about how corporate negligence can kill people. Let me know what you think about PG&E in the comments. Be sure to like this video and share it. And if you like this reporting, make sure to like the Direct From playlist. I'll see you next time.